Fair dinkum, you guys would have seen just as many as me bent utes, and that's what I'm trying to prevent. That's what this video is about. How I load my canopy so that I lower the chances of bending my ute, and what I've done to the chassis on my ute to also help prevent the bending of the ute. Nothing is going to prevent it completely. If you drive stupid and load incorrectly, you will bend it no matter what you do to your ute. So this video is about how I reduce the possibility of bending my ute. The vulnerable area is between the rear of the cab and the ute. That's where they start bending, and it's due mostly because a lot of people load the heavier things right at the back on the rear side of the back tyres. That's a no-no. One of the things you can do to help, apart from load your vehicle properly, is head off to somewhere like Superior Engineering, who did mine, and get chassis reinforcement plates put on. So the middle of the ute, where the chassis finishes and the tray begins, that's the weak spot, and that's where the plates go. So the plates start just on the chassis side of the cab, and they continue back just past the rear wheel. To help prevent bending the ute, you can put the weight forward in the ute. So a lot of my gear is stored in wolf pack boxes on the back seat forward of the rear axle, and put less weight at the rear or behind your back wheel. The canopy is what sits on the back of my ute. Now, that's a very heavy canopy, especially when I've loaded it all up. But in the crucial area, the area that's going to cause the bending, I've only got the rear wheel inside the door, so it's not just the plates on the chassis that'll help prevent the chassis from bending, it's how I load the vehicle. Now, in a lot of canopies, especially after a camping trip, you throw all your stuff in the back, and it's a lot easier to throw those heavy things down right down the back where you load the vehicle. That's what causes stress on your chassis. As you can see, the setup that I've got here, and this is how it is all the time, all the weight's forward. So both water tanks, 150 litres of water, sits over or just the other side of the rear axle, which is forward of the rear axle, along with the electrics and the fridge. That all sits up front of the canopy. There is no weight loaded down into the back apart from the rear tyre, and that rear tyre doesn't always travel with me. So if I'm going on a trip where I know I've got access to RACQ, the only rear tyre I take is the one that's a standard one fitted underneath the tray of the ute. So after arriving at Superior, the next thing we do is get it on the hoist. Regarding the prep, the wheels come off, the airbags are disconnected, everything's, or if there's any wiring inside the chassis, so in the chassis rails, the wiring has to be taken out. There's a lot of welding happening in there, a lot of heat, and the wiring will melt if you leave it in there, so the wiring has to come out. Once all that's done, it's grounded back, so everywhere there's going to be welds, it needs to be metal to metal, so you need to take all the paint or rust proofing or whatever you've got on the chassis off, so it's all clean and prepped, ready to have the new plates welded on. A lot of attention's paid to the area that is the most vulnerable, and that's that area in between where the chassis finishes and the tray starts. So there is a plate specifically for that area, then there is a plate for behind the mount, and then there is a U plate that attaches the two. Once all the prep's finished, the grinding and the cleaning, they then put a coat of weld-friendly prep over it, and then it's ready for the new plates. The two main plates are tacked on first, and then the last, and welded, and then the last plate's tacked on and welded, and you've got all three plates on. Once all three plates are completely on, they check all the welds to make sure there's no bubbles. If there are any bubbles, that's ground and re-welded. And once all the welding's finished, they put a coat of paint back over it, and it's all finished. All done, ready to go, it's reassembled, the airbags go back on, the tyres go back on, and you now have a chassis that has been reinforced with 5mm plates. Well, that nears the end of another video. Thank you very much for watching. Big thanks to Ross Back of Superior Engineering over there at Burpengary, who walked me through the pros and cons of chassis reinforcement. I completely agree, it definitely will help prevent the chassis from bending, but along with that, you still need to pack it right and you need to drive it right. If you don't have all three of those ingredients, you still increase your chances of bending a ute. Particularly if it's a dual cab ute, they seem to be more vulnerable than any other ute, and that would be because you got the chassis finishing just prior to the rear axle, whereas in a single cab ute, your rear axle is quite some way back and takes a large part of the weight in the middle of the tray. Again, thanks Ross for your help through that. Do appreciate it. Just so you know, this isn't a sponsored video. Superior did not sponsor me. I paid full price for this this modification to the vehicle. It does come with a mod plate, so you get an engineering certificate and a mod plate, and that goes on your car along with it. You will have to carry the engineering certificate in your glove box with the mod plate, or along with having a mod plate on your car. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next video. Take care. Oh, don't forget, any comments or mentions in the comments field below. If you want to help the channel, Patreon link, hit that, follow the bouncing ball, shout me a coffee. See you next time.